half of my job is anxiety management for my athletes. Triathletes are notoriously anxious about everything. Most of what I'm doing is working on helping my athletes work on self-regulation. So the panic of, oh my gosh, I got sick and I have to take 3 days off of training. What does that mean? Well, it means you take 3 days off training and we get back to work when you can. And the impact is the impact. And ultimately, we as humans ascribe meaning to everything we do, but objectively, it doesn't mean anything other than you got sick, you had to take rest, and we will get back to it when we get back to it.
A lot of people, they get in that negative spiral of, oh, too many things are going on in my life that are unforeseen, that I didn't plan, and then they can't get back on track. And I think that's really hard to get yourself out of that funk.
This is where, as a coach, one of the things that I've coached single dads, single moms, working moms and dads, and people who just have crazy demanding schedules. And one of the things that I talk to them specifically about is consistency. And so, yes, there might be a week when your kid is sick and like literally all you can manage to do is like air squats in your kitchen or run up and down the stairs when you can. And even if you can get 5, 10, 15 minutes of something in, even if it's not continuous through the day, moving your body is going to, like, you're just trying to check a box, however big or small that box is. And sometimes giving 100% that day is literally checking the I didn't do anything box because I have nothing to give today. And that's honest. And so it's a matter of being honest with yourself. And then it's nice to have accountability too. So, have someone to be like, coach, what do I do?
Yeah, that has to be, now that I'm thinking about it more, that has to be so difficult for some of your clients, because you're not talking about someone who's going to the gym 5 days a week for 30 minutes. You're talking about someone who they might have mapped out, they have to run 80 miles this week, or they have to do some, I don't know, maybe that's extreme.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, like just crazy amount of training. And if they get the flu or they get COVID or something like that, I imagine they do probably spiral in their mind, like, how is this going to set me back? How am I going to come back from this? And how am I going to continue on that plan? Now that I think about it more, that has to be incredibly challenging for someone training for something like this.
Yeah, it is. And half of my job, I like to kind of joke, is anxiety management for my athletes. Triathletes are notoriously anxious about everything. And so most of what I'm doing is working on helping my athletes work on self-regulation. So the panic of, oh my gosh, I got sick and I have to take 3 days off of training. What does that mean? Well, it means you take 3 days off training and we get back to work when you can. And the impact is the impact. And ultimately, we as humans ascribe meaning to everything we do, but objectively, it doesn't mean anything other than you got sick, you had to take rest, and we will get back to it when we get back to it.
I love that. Okay. So I want to talk about, the athletes, and for our listeners that maybe they identify as an athlete now, or they say they used to be an athlete. So what do you think prompts women to feel like they are no longer an athlete if they were?
Well, I think the first thing to make a distinction is when I'm casually speaking about athletes, what I'm really saying, to be more nuanced with my language, is a person who plays athletics or does athletics. Because starting to identify too much as an athlete as your sole identity, or thinking that you have to identify that way, becomes really, it kind of reinforces kind of this black and white thinking that either I am or I am not, instead of there's part of me that's always been an athlete. So if, that the part of me that in college, that part of me that was an athlete kind of went into hibernation mode for the first 2 years of school where I wasn't playing sports. Actually, I didn't tell you this, but I started playing rugby the first week I got to DePaul, and I broke my arm in the first game. So I couldn't do sports. And that, I think, probably contributed to the depression and all the other things. But, when that fire got reignited, when I started training again, I was like, oh, this, I can feel this. It's like these embers started to get like reignited. And it took a long time for, there was this full fire burning. But I think, in anything we do in life, the things that we loved as kids, I think there's always this aspect that exists in us that we can totally cultivate and, encourage. And I think, when you've had time away from a sport and you try to come back to being active, particularly like the older you get, as I'm approaching 40, I told my swim partner yesterday, I was like pulling myself out of the pool and like, my shoulder hurts, my neck hurts. Like right now, everything hurts on me. Like this is just like how it feels to be an athlete. And I'm like, wow, I am really starting to feel my age. And so when You think about people who have had children and gone through pregnancies and put on like more body mass. It's not going to feel the way it did when you were 20 or 18. It just isn't. But if you can think about, okay, I'm not doing this to lose weight or to look better, which those are totally fine reasons to exercise and get back into activity. But if you can think about, oh yeah, there was part of me that loved this. There was part of me that really liked something about this. Starting to reflect on that, that is the thing that will help you come back to it. So it's like, oh yeah, I feel better at the end of this. Like I loathe going to, class, but I always feel better at the end. Always.